Call the work session of Tuesday, October the 11th to order.
2356.
The item number 2 is citizen comments for time where citizens can comment on things that are not on the agenda. I see no one that wants to speak.
Mr. Mayor, Eric was going to have reference. He was going to do a couple of things. Do you?
We are going to do those.
Okay, good enough.
Yes. Yeah, this may not look like Eric, but it's Eric.
Good enough.
Pretty close.
Yes. Pretty close.
Pretty
yeah.
close.
A little better looking.
You got your retirement from the other job?
I can see this is going to be a good meeting without Eric. We're grading you tonight, Vernon, to see how you do. So anyway, I know Vernon wanted to make a couple of comments, and they'll be in reference, I think, to what you want, Clyde. So go ahead.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. The first thing that I wanted to bring you up to date on is the hazard mitigation program. And as you recall, we have two phases, phase 1 and phase 2. All the information, the environmental reports from the 5 different agencies have been submitted to TEMA. Okay, for both phase 1 and phase 2. We're waiting to hear from TEMA, who has submitted those reports and all the information to FEMA. And once we hear back from them, then we can start doing what we need to do as far as appraisals and following through on our end. What we just had submitted everything for phase 1 and phase 2 on Wednesday. Phase 1 had been submitted earlier. However, one of the environmental reports wasn't correct, and we have updated that correctly and gotten it to TEMA. And Tom Marsh was planning to contact TEMA, his contact there later this week.
And just for people that might not recognize mitigation, hazard mitigation, we mean the flood buyout.
That's right. Thank you.
Well, I'm getting calls about that, so I'm glad to know that. But do you contact the people who are waiting for their buyouts to tell them that, is there any communication between you and the people who are awaiting their buyouts?
I don't know if how much dialogue Tom has had with those residents. I do know that several of them have been in communication with him, but I can ask him to follow up tomorrow and let them know where we are.
Yes.
That would be very good.
They're very concerned.
And again, there were 4 properties in phase 1 and another 4 in phase 2.
It's a total of 8.
Yes. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
And then you had another.
Yes, another update of interest regarding the Wilson Pike McEwen traffic signal and the Wilson Pike Clovercoff traffic signals that were the school board is working to install in conjunction with the opening of the Clovercroft Elementary School. Pleased to report that the contractor the school board has hired has installed the poles and several of the light devices. They expect them to be energized probably by Friday, maybe, hopefully by Monday at the latest. They'll go on flashing for a period of time, and then the device programming will be eventually activated. So we should see some things moving by the end of next week.
Great.
You know anything about that turn lane? Because they are constructing that turn lane at Clovercroft and Wilson. Have you had an update on that?
They are working on that. Actually, I physically had visited the site this past weekend and saw that progress is being made, and they've been working on it.
Other questions? Number 3, consideration of event permit for Pumpkin Fest and Barbecue Fest to be held October 29th in downtown Franklin. And I think there's a request to consider a slight change in that.
We submitted separate requests for Pumpkin Fest and the barbecue. And then the city staff recommended that we move the barbecue teams from 3rd Avenue North to 3rd Avenue South, because we could use the Church Street parking lot too, which is great. But we had originally requested 5 a.m. on because they cook whole hogs and things, takes a long time, and the competition starts at 10 a.m. Saturday. So to this memo that you have, the only change would be on the second page, under Streets Department, it says 4th Avenue North and South will close 5 a.m. on Friday, October 28th. We would like to add and 3rd Avenue South, which is what we originally requested. It was just 3rd Avenue North.
And third, you want to add Third Avenue what?
3rd Avenue South to those two streets.
Let's see, I saw
Right,
Chief
that's right,
Rahinsky.
Yeah, so David.
Yeah.
David's right here.
How do we do that on a Friday afternoon?
Well, I've talked to Lilybell's, they don't have any events there. And we always, when we close 3rd Avenue South, it's usually kids' activities, and we always keep a fire lane through everything that's there, so they can get up the alley. But it would be closed to vehicle traffic, except for, fire trucks. Maybe we could get deliveries in, garbage trucks on Friday.
And we're fine with the revisions as requested. We have raised the suggested number of extra duty, off-duty from 4 to 8 officers.
And how about the business right across the street here, law offices, or in that house next door to the side of Lilybell's?
Well, they could get in if they needed to. I mean, we might want to put an officer there.
There will be an officer there, and when we close the street to through traffic, if somebody's a resident or they have a business in the enclosed area, they're allowed access.
Right. But there's not, other than the on-street parking, those people don't typically park,
Yeah.
right there.
In City Hall and
All in Peterson.
I assume this will be one of those times that we have the signs letting people know in advance. The only thing that I heard about last week's 2 events was that people were not aware necessarily that the roads were going to be closed. And if we have those signs put out in the appropriate places that you usually do, saying this is going to happen, and have them out for several days, that really does help people that typically come through these areas.
Yes, ma'am.
But
And that's extremely important to them. I had a call from somebody in the traffic one of these days.
It was me, I was looking for you.
didn't the merchants know about it? Didn't the DFA contact them? I thought everybody knew about
No,
it.
wait, it's the drivers, the traffic, the people that are coming through this, that normally drive through town. That's the reason I was saying about having the signs out on the streets, so that they will know in advance. But sometimes we do put
We'll
those.
work with streets
Yeah,
about putting the flashing
please.
signs out, letting
Right,
them know.
that letting them know.
the motorists
at least a
beforehand of the
couple
street closure.
Yeah, whatever
Yes, ma'am.
days ahead.
So how far out do we put those, say on Franklin Road, coming in the afternoon?
There you go. Voice in the gallery.
Especially near
Put it
Hollinsdale
in the back entry.
Park.
I think I've seen it at the Hollinsdale area. I mean,
But by the time you get to there, there's nothing, no.
Yeah,
place
yeah,
to go.
Back entry along
After you get past
Franklin.
Liberty, you're
but
permitted.
it's a pending.
Obviously, right, you would need Liberty to use. But really, I think the point that you make is if we put them out beforehand,
Yes.
people will know to avoid the area the day of the event
And
itself.
we've done that
Yes,
before.
ma'am.
And also on 96, going in too. And maybe on both ends, I don't know. But as I say, the comment to me was that they really needed to know in advance.
We'll work with
so
Joe
that they could
Youngkin
make
Streets to get the
plans.
signs out early.
And this is a hugely promoted
Oh, yes.
weekend. Those
The
previous
others were
two
not.
were not,
But since they had just happened,
I
and
know.
both in the same week, that's why I was especially sensitive to this right now. And this is probably one of the ones that we've done the signs before. I know we've done them
It
before.
is, this is a big one.
Before the spring.
So we are effectively blocking that garage off over there.
No, you can still get in the garage from 4th Avenue.
Yeah.
Well, you got 4th, North, and South closed at 5 a.m. on Friday.
Just that little section. We would close it at the entrance of the garage to Main Street. That is just to put up a big tent. And so the sign just goes down at Church Street, and it says the garage is open, the Main Street's closed.
Good.
It's closed at Main Street. And then Main Street closes at 10 o'clock on Friday night.
The little alley before the garage on this side, that's open too as well, right? Can they get?
It
take a
will
left?
be to,
'Cause they have-
we can keep it open
Traffic.
for deliveries and for people who need, that's why we
Yeah.
need an
I was
officer
gonna say
there
we
to
need
explain it.
some
You know,
way to keep
vendor
it.
traffic, ice deliveries, that
okay.
type of thing.
That's all I'm concerned about. Good.
And City Hall, there would still be access to City Hall. Officers would allow people to,
They needed to be here.
for business, okay.
Well, we can park and walk too. Or park in the back.
Everybody good? All right. Next, consideration of event permit for Centennial High School Homecoming Parade to be held October 21st. Any problem with that one? Number 5, consideration of Resolution 2011-47, a resolution amending Resolution 2011-19, authorizing the sale of compost material in unlimited quantities by the City of Franklin Streets Department. Mr. York, welcome.
Mr. Mayor, since we've been approved to sell compost, we have only sold a minimal amount. Therefore, we have a huge stockpile on hand. What we're asking you to do is amend this resolution to allow us to sell it in bulk so we can get it moved, because if we don't get this moved, then we don't have room for the future compost.
Makes sense to me.
Fire sale, fire sale.
No, that's really a big operation now.
Yes,
It's
ma'am.
pretty impressive.
Yes, ma'am.
What are we doing to get the word out so we can move this?
We will-
Besides, hey, everybody on TV, come get your compost.
We will advertise by all means available. I'm sure I'm fixing to get with Melissa after this, if you approve it, to get her to get it out,
Good.
and hopefully get it out in the paper also.
Very good. Number 6, consideration of agreement to provide ingress and egress easement and fiber optic easement, and agreement for the maintenance of the ingress and egress easement and fiber optic easement.
Repeat.
Who writes these things?
It had to be two different people.
I thought they were very well worded. Do you have a problem with it?
I lost you after
We
the
just don't know
second
what
time.
they mean.
Mr. Parker had his finger on the wrong button for too long.
It's legal.
There was 2 attorneys and 4 people other than the attorneys drafting this thing.
We meant no offense, of course. Okay.
They're not that big words anyway.
That's why I give you a hard time.
We've got,
Go ahead.
we've got the resolution coming. The only thing I really want you guys to pay attention to is the paragraph D.
Let us get them. if you
Okay.
don't
Yeah.
mind.
Well, maybe I can
go ahead.
introduce a little bit. We do have a resolution that provides authority for the mayor and city administrator to endorse the agreement once it becomes finalized. Last week, Eric did send you an agreement over the last couple of days.
Oh, I have a printout.
We have received feedback from the Lasco Legal Counsel, and it's not much different, but there are several notes to it, and we've tried to distinguish between on this copy that Linnea is handing out that we just got back about an hour or so ago. So we're very close to reaching a consensus on what is to happen. I will say that one of the points that was previously discussed that several of you had mentioned was about the easement running with the land of Lasco, regardless of whether or not the city ever sold the property. That condition was not acceptable to Lasco. However, what they have agreed to is that they would allow basically an option that over a 25-year period, that the value of that improvement made on the Lasco property would be depreciated 1/25th annually. And that in the event the city decides to sell the property between now and 25 years, that Lasco would have the option of reimbursing the city the remaining value of that depreciated easement, or allowing the easement to be transferred to the new property owner.
And that's on page 3 of 7, paragraph I. What you're looking at, this colorful document that you're looking at, compares what you originally got from Eric with where we are now, just so you guys can see. 'Cause I know originally you had a draft agreement, but Lasco hadn't seen it yet. So this is kind of just compares where we are now. That's why it's so colorful.
Okay, so let's slow this again. We're gonna put in $300,000 worth of traffic signals for them.
Well,
they're
plus
gonna
the
pay-
pay-
they're gonna-
no.
Some other people are gonna help pay for
Yes.
it.
But 100,000 was going to come from,
Longview
Across the street.
110, yes.
eventually.
what's the total cost of the traffic? Because that was what we were contributing to allow for us to,
What we have just put into the agreement for discussion purposes is a $750,000, okay? And we would validate the value of those improvements once we put them out to bid, inclusive of the roadway, inclusive of the traffic signal, okay? And then depreciate that over that 25-year period through November 2036.
what's the breakdown of the $750,000? What are those items?
The dollar amounts on them?
No, what items are those?
Okay, well, we have the
Is that-
traffic signal, okay, and I apologize, I don't have that list in front of me, the traffic signal, the future in construction of the roadway that we put in, a small amount of fencing against the soccer fields where the access road immediately comes out, a gate at the property line,
And there's 20 extra spots.
and 22 extra parking spaces.
And isn't there some grass or a median or something?
Well, yes, and the curbing and the median that would be associated. And the next item on the agenda really addresses that because we don't know how much curbing will need to be installed, and that really gets to the professional services agreement with Reagan Smith, so we can actually have it engineered and surveyed. And of course, that, Alderman Skinner, part of that cost is the surveying and the documentation to create the easement after we acquire the property.
So other than doing the strip across the soccer fields, I mean, the other road bed is parking lot anyway, isn't it?
It
Well,
won't be,
the other roadway may or may not need to be reconstructed immediately based on the condition of it. There is a roadway that is adjacent and parallel to the soccer field. And, you know, some of the determination is whether that needs to be milled and relaid, maybe a curbing put in, and those are things that are yet to be determined. The $750,000 is a very high amount to be inclusive of starting from scratch, which we know we don't have to.
There was some notation about value of parking spaces that they'll lose. Are they asking
They
us?
said they were losing 50.
They said they were losing 50, and the final design is a lot of that is being coordinated with their engineer, Gary Basson. And we've looked at what we are proposing and have come to an agreement that we would widen their existing parking lot that would allow for 22 more spaces, and they're agreeable to that, and that's in the agreement under D1D, I believe.
Okay, so there'll be no chance that they'll come back at a later date and say that we're depriving them
No.
of.
Any additions or expansions that they may contemplate in the future, they would have to provide the additional parking in accordance with our ordinances.
So who has the option in the next 25 years? How does that work?
Let me
What
try to
triggers
do that with an example, if I may. And I'm not going to use exact figures. In the event the city decides to sell the property at year 10, perhaps, okay, of owning it, 10 years from today, we would take the depreciated value, and let's say that value after 10 years is $500,000, okay? We would approach LASCO, and they have an option in this agreement to either pay us the $500,000, which is the remaining value of that improvement, or to transfer the easement to the property, to the future owner, okay?
And that would take care of us.
It would take care of us, yes.
Has anybody talked about the value of the property we're using as far as eminent domain?
As, you mean acquiring the Lasco property through eminent domain?
The roadbed.
Just that one.
That, you know, I think that's a thought, but I think we have to be very careful with that. We're really partnering with a business owner here, and would not want to take that approach, because they are really offering us the ability to access that site through a traffic signal. True, we're making an investment, but the value of that frontage on Columbia Avenue as the city grows is very valuable. And as you may have noted in the agreement, in the event they want to do something where our easement exists or is being planned, that at their cost, they would have to relocate it on their property as long as we can connect 84 Lumber to the signal.
I noticed that there wasn't a statement that would be acceptable to the city, that would also be acceptable to the city for that relocation. Is that in this new draft?
Well, actually, we had proposed a couple different options, and they've asked us to more or less come this route, which is the most ideal. So as long as they can get us from out of the property to that signal, and we had originally looked at coming out of the back of the property, which was the longest route and most expensive. I don't know if that's a necessary concern.
I'm just saying, if they decide that they want to change this, it needs to be, we need to arrive at this mutually.
I think it says that in there.
The first
We'll look at it.
thing
If it doesn't, we can
can
make
make
sure that we have a say in where it goes.
So, let's go back to this, and I'm not saying I'm in favor of this, but have we looked at what the cost would be if we pursued eminent domain?
The only thing about eminent domain is, if we decide we want to take it, then we have to go through the process of a lawsuit, probably filing the condemnation, unless they're willing to negotiate with us, but we pay for the easement. In this case, we're not paying for the easement, we're working out an arrangement in which they get a signal and we get the access through their property. If we decide that we wanted to take it, we would be able to keep it forever, there's no doubt about that. But you also have to think about the time it would take in order to get us there. Plus, we're going to have to do a lot anyway, so might as well have this mutual beneficial contract to get us where we need to be. It turns us into adversaries versus partners.
I know. I just wanted to look from a dollar sense what the difference might be.
Well, we know that based on the value of the property and at this current location, that would be pretty expensive because we'd be cutting through the frontage of that property. If we looked at going through the rear, that might be a different,
But that would still be expensive.
well, the cost of us putting in the improvement is you're adding footage to it, so would be a greater cost. So that's the challenge.
The other question was the part that the Longview Development's going to pay for the light.
And that's on, I think, number 13, and we might want to move that up on the work session.
Is that, how do we calculate how that's shared? So that we'll know that so we're paying for the Lasco side,
Yeah.
and then whatever the city would pay.
If it's appropriate, I can address that.
Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and talk about 5, 6, and 13 all as one unit, if that's okay.
Okay. Let me speak to the Lasco, or the Longview agreement. We had, Eric sent you out that agreement last evening, and Mr. Magley and his partners are reviewing that. I've spoke to them today. They're very much in favor of that, and my initial responses from them have been very positive. The $110,000 contribution, that comes from the originally approved preliminary plat that the city had approved back a little bit more than a year ago. You may recall that I had mentioned, I think the last meeting or prior, that that plat has not been recorded, therefore it's not valid anymore. And if they had recorded the plat, there would have been sureties for the improvement of that intersection and their public infrastructure. $110,000 was identified when it was proved a year ago as the contribution for the signal. And all we're doing is carrying that forward in an agreement that we shared with you for the purpose of us to be able to plan and maybe include some features how that signal will work instead of just doing what's needed today, but knowing that we're going to get the $110,000 at the time they're able to move forward. Hopefully, the signal makes that property more appealing and some things start to happen out there, and that comes sooner than later.
I do want to say that we haven't said, item D says, if LASCO agrees that should it sell the property, the ingress and egress easement shall provide the sales transaction. I'm assuming that means it needs to be put on the deed, to attach to the deed.
Oh yeah, this will be, our easements will be filed. This document, what all this document says is once we get a survey and we get an understanding of where exactly that line's going to be, we're going to draft easements that will be filed against both properties. So it will be filed, no doubt about it.
Well, as I say, I was happy to see you. We
Yes.
were talking about if we sold it, but we haven't made the point that if they sold it.
We made very
then-
clear that if they sell it, we still get it. We still get the easement, no doubt about it.
There is a timeline on this, and so tonight in the voting session, we will approve this, but approve it conditionally that there may be some things that legal has to put in there.
Yeah, what you're doing actually is you're approving resolution 1150 and 1151 that gives the mayor and the city administrator authority to sign an agreement similar to what you have. If you want to see it, maybe a couple hours or however long before we actually sign it, I'm sure Eric would be happy to send that to you before he signs it, but because we need to sign it quickly, all you're doing is giving Eric and Ken the authority to sign these agreements, something similar to what you have.
I should maybe emphasize what Eric had indicated in his email last evening, that if there's any changes of substance, that we would come back and have a special public meeting on that.
Yeah,
We
can't
will
work that
share
out.
with you the agreement, but we don't expect it to change much at all at this juncture. Agreements, I should say.
Go back and let's go one more time on the 25 years. They have the option of paying us the depreciated amount for the improvements, but then we no longer have the egress, even if we still own the property?
No.
No, only
It's
if we sell,
only if we
only in
sell.
the event we sell it.
Sell the property.
At their option, they can either choose to buy all of that at the depreciated value or let it
So the
run.
trigger would be at that 25th year, they have to either do one or the other.
No, the trigger is if you sell.
If we
Only
sell,
if we
84
sell.
lots.
only if the city sells.
Now and November 2036.
But there's no limitation on how long we have this.
Well, if it's
After
year
25.
26 and we decide to sell, they don't have to do anything. It doesn't run with the land and they don't have to pay anything. But I think we've decided after 25 years, the roadway and the improvements wouldn't be worth much
But
by that time, 25 years from now.
But Mike, I'm not sure if I understood, our access easement runs all the time, whether LASCO sells the property or not, that continues.
But as long as we own the property, our access
Yes.
easement
Is there.
is-
Regardless of that
Always from
25
our
years.
property to the
Regardless.
travel signal, and that's it.
Good.
Everybody good on 6, 7, and 13? Good job. Number 8, consideration of amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement, City of Franklin contract 2011-0073 with TVG Environmental for environmental testing at Bicentennial Park. An amount not to exceed $9,000, but think there's a new document circulating. So go ahead.
Correct, it's actually for $28,000. What it is it's associated with property located at 200 North Margin Street as part of the Harpeth River Greenway project. We contracted with TVG to go out there and do some testing, and they've testing on the old landfill at the property. It's been determined that all the material is non-hazardous, allowing us to get our permit through TDEC. At this time, the state of Tennessee and the landfill where we'll be disposing of the material is requesting additional testing, and this amendment will cover that testing.
Wait a minute, why do we have to do it additionally if they've already determined that it's not hazardous?
They've looked at it, and they've looked at an older report, and because it's a landfill, it needs to be closed out as a landfill, and that's what TDEC is requiring. And to actually do a landfill closure, they need us to go out there and actually dig 3 wells and provide those test results.
Is that what the road is that's through there?
Yes, it's actually multi-use trails, part of Bicentennial Park, and eventually it'll be the future extension of South Margin Street to service the
I don't know why people are so
park.
concerned about that. I've had many calls about that. Why are they building that road through there? And I don't know.
It's just a multi-use trail that'll connect eventually through Bicentennial Park and connect over the trail on Hillsborough Road.
But the road is different. I mean, the trails are going to be there anyway, but the road, you know, now that we're going to be moving the city property on Hillsborough over to 84 Lumber. The road itself, I don't know whether it's needed as much as it was when we were first proposed that. But this is really for the trails.
This is for the trail.
This is for the trail. And just to say, you know, the city has a grant that has been.
For the trails.
For the trails, yes, that about $600,000-700,000 that we want to put to use, so.
But now, I noticed that it changed from $9,000 to $28,000. Is there?
The reason behind that is the $9,000 was associated with the landfill. All the material over there needs to be taken to a Class 1 landfill.
Well, that's what.
They requested additional, so that's associated with that. While we were getting that contract put together, we actually received a letter from TDEC stating that they also needed additional testing, and that's why this was revised to be, to satisfy both parties and hopefully end this.
Is this site upstream or downstream from the creek at Daniels Drive?
Down.
Down,
I
isn't
believe
it?
it's downstream.
Downstream.
Yeah. But this is where the dumping was done years ago.
Correct.
Very good. Everybody good?
I don't know, this one's redundant, but
That's T.
can't get around it.
TDEC is regulations.
Oh, yeah. Regulate. They all
Let the
know.
record reflect that someone came in and acting like Eric Stuckey.
You never know. It's
you never
close to
know.
Halloween.
You probably want to speak after watching. Okay, we'll move on to number 9, and number 9, we're going to defer that to the November 8th work session and board meeting. And so during the meeting tonight, we'll need a motion to defer, and that item on the,
Thank you, God.
you recall what number that was on the voting session?
13, I believe it was.
I believe it was, no,
15?
15.
I believe it's 15.
Yeah. So we'll just need a motion. For number 10 is consideration of the procurement of 8 environmentally controlled Ethernet switch cabinets for the Franklin ITS project from Purcell Systems, Spokane, Washington, in an amount of $22,727.58.
And again, as the item states, this is for the ITS project, and making a lot of progress here over the last couple months. And these are for some, as it says, switches to help facilitate all the technology.
Within our existing budget.
Yes.
Number 11, consideration of amendment to the construction, engineering, and inspection CEI services proposal provided by RPM Transportation Consultants for the Franklin ITS American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009.
This is a part of the same project, and because we received federal funds for this project, we do need to extend the contract with the consultant for their required reporting. And this will be covered in the federal funding that we received for the additional reporting. So there won't be any cost to the city.
But it just says the request will not be eligible for TDOT matching funds, however.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
On that first page there, under financial impact, it says the increase of $30,000 will not be eligible for TDOT matching funds.
I'm going to have Kevin come up.
I mean, that's just what this says.
Yes. I think that's, because that's consultant fees, but it'd still be, we've got a good amount. Hey, Kevin.
Welcome, Kevin.
The way the contract's worded with TDOT, we're not going to be able to extend without their previous approval. This money is going to be set aside, coming out of our, it can be used from the budget that we have for the signal project, for that project. But I don't feel that it's eligible for reimbursement because we're extending the contract beyond what the original scope of the job was.
But there's funds available within
Yes.
the budget.
Right,
Yes.
right.
It was budgeted.
You have your money.
So this is what it says.
We actually have it in contingencies.
Number 12, consideration resolution 2011-48, a resolution to authorize the mayor to submit an application to the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation for recreational trails program grant funds.
And do we have anything about this?
You should have a resolution. You should have a copy of the memo and the resolution.
No? Nope.
I don't have number 12 on here.
Lisa, that's what we have for number 12.
Well, tell us about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The resolution should be on.
I sent you an email, Eric, asking you about that.
Who's on the voting?
Well, this is part,
Okay.
okay.
Well, sometimes.
Sure.
Tell us about it.
Well, it's just part of this is the Recreation Trails Program. It's part of the application process where you do a resolution for, it's an 80-20 match. And this is the same type of grant in which you talked about earlier for Bicentennial that we received back in 2006. So it's for equestrian trails and pedestrian trails at Harlansdale, as well as ADA canoe access at Pinkerton and Harlansdale. So that's what the particular, I apologize, I was out of town last week and I was having staff work on this for me and didn't realize it didn't make it to the thing.
Elaborate on the equestrian trails.
Sure. Well, we currently have just natural trail systems at Harlansdale right now. In the master plan, it calls for equestrian trail systems to where it would be shared certain times during the week to where you could come out and ride. Currently, we have a 3K, a 5K, and a 10K walking paths out there.
Right.
And so we would be able to incorporate the longest trail into equestrian, such as, for special events or even during the week, say on a Tuesday or Thursday, as certain parts throughout Tennessee does. That way you could bring it out, exercise your horse, but at that time, bikers or pedestrians would not be allowed to walk. So it really helps to bring horses onto the property, but at the same time, then they would exit at the end of the day.
So no stabling and no...
No, sir. Not at this time, unless you know something I don't.
No, I don't.
BYOH.
It's a good way to say it.
The other thing is, how much money are we talking about?
The maximum amount for this grant is $120,000. We are working with the Harper River Watershed to do some matching, as well as our part of that would be in kind, to where we would do for the trail system and that type of thing. The Harper River Watershed Association would come in and with volunteers with the ADA canoe access for those type of things at Pinkerton. Right now in the resolution it has for Pinkerton, Bicentennial, and Harlansdale. it just depends on those grants, really depend on what amount of funding you receive. And then the first priority would be the trail systems. And then we would look at the canoe access and which one that we'd be able to afford.
Lisa, is there a timing issue or a deadline for the application that we're working with here?
Yes, sir, thank you. The application is October the 28th. So we'll make copies.
We'll make sure you get copies between
We'll go ahead.
meetings, you can look at it.
It is just one
Fairly
page.
straightforward.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
We're talking about the trails and the walking trails. So when the horses are not, when the horses are there, are we trying to construct two different sets of trails? So
No, ma'am.
It'll be the same, so.
They would be the same.
So I did hear you right. In other words, when the horses are there, then people can't walk.
Correct.
Okay, I wouldn't want to walk after the horses have been there.
Well, there'd have to be rules and right. It's kind of like
A cleanup time.
Yeah.
I'd rather have two different trails.
Take
Sure.
a big plastic bag for horse litter.
I'm just wondering how that works.
Bigger than the doggy pots.
Bigger than a doggy.
Do we still have our mounted
We do.
police? I never see him. I haven't seen him since Pickerton Park.
Weekly, we do have them at Pickerton Park or inside different parks throughout our system. So it just depends on what day of the week he chooses. Sometimes he's at Harlansdale, Pinkerton, Winstead. It really just depends. We try to really swap that around. and work
It's more
through
driven
this.
too for event type of situations. That's an appropriate use for that, so that's where you're going to see it. And of course, it's not a full-time patrol. It's something we use as a supplement. It's a full-time officer who does it, who's essentially donating the horse and the costs associated with the horse so that we can provide it at certain community events, certain other events and park events that make sense for that to be present.
So that's not a budgeted item then?
It's very, very low cost. I think we have $1 lease for the horse, and it's otherwise it's scheduling the time of Lieutenant Brabowski, who is our expert.
Any other questions?
Okey-doke. Number 14, consideration of general maintenance agreement, City of Franklin, contract number 2011-0142 with the Tennessee Department of Transportation, agreement number 110275 for Mack Hatcher Parkway and from south of Murfreesboro Road to west of Franklin Road.
This really comes with the expansion of that roadway, which TDOT is moving forward with. They've received bids for this project in September, middle of September, I believe, and are in the process of awarding that. We expect that work to start before the end of the calendar year, so November, December timeframe. And in conjunction with that, they place the responsibility on the locality for some of the maintenance elements, especially those that go above and beyond what they normally have in place on a roadway. This provides for that, and this is a requirement of TDOT going forward that we would provide that maintenance.
Do we know what's an annual cost on it? Do we know
I don't
that?
think we really know exactly. My expectation is it's not a whole lot different than what we have to do in the other areas around Mack Hatcher. It's going to be pretty similar to the Franklin Road to Hillsborough Road stretch. They've limited some of the context-sensitive design components as a cost-saving measure to try to make the project money go as far as they could within their budget overall. But I don't think we have a solid number, but we don't expect it to be dramatically different than what we're experiencing now.
But we would cut the right-of-way?
We would maintain those responsibilities. Yeah.
But we're thinking it's
Alderman
going to be
Berger.
similar to what we already have.
It's pretty similar to what we've got now, yes.
Okay, yeah, so landscape, walkways, ornamental structures. Let me ask you about the ornamental structures. Have they done anything different in that roundabout at 96 and Mack Hatcher to sort of tone
Whenever we
that?
get to that, you're right, we need to talk about
Tone
that.
that thing down, because that was like.
You're talking about the extension of Mack Hatcher?
No, it's just, okay. Well, they were talking about, we would have to maintain the landscaping, the walkways, and electric-operated solar-powered devices such as traffic signals and streetlights. And also in there, they said ornamental structures. What I'm interested in is that, Ann's laughing over there, is that roundabout that they proposed for 96 in Manacatcher, because it was like this.
That's on the extension.
Yeah.
That's not in this project.
It's not in it. So
No,
they're
this
not
is
going
just
up
for
to
the,
that.
this is for the widening project between
Yeah.
96 East Murfreesboro
Yeah.
Road to Franklin Road.
Right.
And so there's no such structure in that component.
It's in that other piece.
The other
Oh, so
piece,
that roundabout is not going to happen.
that's
then.
part of the extension
Not
from
this.
Hillsborough to 96 West, or new 96, on the west side. So, and
Oh, so that
and those,
doesn't happen.
Get a shot at it.
and we've been given the heads up from TDOT that they are re-examining
Good.
all of
Yeah,
those
okay.
context-sensitive design elements
I
to
didn't-
decide what's most important, where there's
Yeah.
value added, and where are there ones
Yeah.
that may not be,
Yeah.
as important in terms of them applying their dollars for the
Yeah.
greatest
Okay.
impact.
So when they say ornamental structures here, what would ornamental structures be in this section?
I don't know that there's a whole lot, I don't have all the details. What's that? Bike, well, there's the bike path, the multi-use path
Uh-huh,
that's
okay.
there.
Which
And
makes
then
sense.
there's the median itself, but we know they've removed the sort of brick paver crosswalks that had originally been anticipated. We know that was removed from this project. That would have been the sort of thing we had maintenance responsibility for, but it's
Yeah, just going to be a.
it's really going to be typical, yeah,
It
so,
will be designated a crosswalk.
yes,
Okay.
yes. So, any other elements?
Wait,
I don't have all the
designated
elements.
crosswalk?
Is this just a
But just
general?
say,
What was?
no other comment from Kevin, so who was
Yeah,
next?
he is
Good.
commenting.
I mean, we have some ITS structures we were talking about putting in there, and the signal, of course, at Liberty and at Franklin Road, Cool Springs, all of those things would continue to be maintained by the city.
Okay.
But we would
Yeah,
expect that, we have that
would be the same.
responsibility
Yeah,
now,
that's not unusual
essentially.
at all.
Yeah. Any other elements we should highlight? I don't have all the plans right on top of me.
We don't do it then.
It's pretty minimal at this
Yeah,
point.
I know.
But now, whenever we talk about crosswalks, do we mean like crosswalks that whenever there's somebody ready to cross and then the traffic has to stop?
Well, I think there's crosswalks at the intersection that work in conjunction with the light.
With the light.
The
Yeah,
traffic
right,
signals
right.
themselves.
Fine.
Not in the midst, but just
Thank you.
with the traffic
At
signals.
a cross section, okay.
Eric, maybe if I could, just expand a little bit about Manacatcher, because it's something that changed this year, really. Last year, we had an agreement with TDOT to take care of cutting Manacatcher, and this year, they decided to take that back themselves, so they maintain it. With the new extension now and the context-sensitive design, part of that is that the city would take care of that and cut it. So I just wanted to draw that distinction going forward, that TDOT's getting out of that particular landscaping business.
I know it's not about this section, but can we have staff inquire when we're gonna see the design for the southeast, Manacatcher widening?
Yeah, we can follow up on that. That is on the list, but we can give you an update on that.
Number 15, acknowledgement of inter-planning commission review of the grape stomp that's already occurred.
Did anybody attend?
I don't think we had any participants this year. We were poorly represented at the grape stomp. So we'll see you at the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting at 7 o'clock.
Wait a minute. Excuse me. I have a question.
Oh, excuse me.
Are we with 15? I have a question about that.
Okay, go
It
ahead.
says special use permit is limited to a one-time occurrence. The event occurred on October 8, 2011. Is that per year or forever?
That's a county permit that was shared
Yeah.
with us.
Communicated with
Well, why is it here even?
Because any types of activities that are within the urban growth boundary that affect us and adjacent to the city, they do communicate with us. Sometimes, depending on their schedule, they come after the fact.
And it did come before the planning commission.
Planning Commission saw it
Right.
prior to the event.
event.
They saw it before, you saw it after.
Margaret,
We jumped at the great
courtesy.
stomp event. Chance to go through it.
They don't really want to hear it.
See you at 7.